All of the artifacts you're seeing here were found the day of the recording of this, so they were all found in shallow water or surface recovery. We never dig or sift. This here appears to be a turtleback scraper, which means that it has a large rise on the back. You can see some ripples and bulbs on it, which the bulbs form from striking, where you strike it is the platform, which is usually right next to the bulb. Now, off the side of them are these things called ramps, which are where the flakes are taken off. Differences in exposure to the elements can affect how the artifacts will look in several thousand years. All of these finds are from the same general area, but some are not as worn as others because of their location. The drill on the far right is most likely a Dalton drill, and it was most likely made between 10,500 to 9,900 years ago. If you look at the big center artifact, it has these little chips from creek wearing on it because it was found in a creek, but ones in the field where they couldn't move as much don't have nearly as many wearing marks. Now going into details about this one we think is either a giant Adena blade or a Preform. The two artifacts on the very left were both found in a field, while the other three were all found in creeks. Now, Chert has a hardness level of 7 on the hardness scale, which is harder than steel, so that's why they commonly used it, plus it was easy to fracture. This one appears to be some kind of tool. Now, it could have possibly been a multi-tool, which they loved those because they could use them for several different purposes and they wouldn't have to completely remake all sorts of things. They usually worked artifacts into a step-by-step process, like they would first whack a chunk from a core, then they would work it into a general shape or preform, and then finally whack smaller flakes. When you hear me talking about a platform, that's where they initially struck so they could get a flake or a huge chunk off of whatever piece of material they were working. Since paleo artifacts have been around for a lot longer, just like with mountains or rocks, they wear down a lot more than like a newer one from, say, the Adena woodland period. Sometimes after a big flood, if you look in a creek like I usually do, you can see these little chips off of some of the artifacts that you find. Now, don't worry, this is not like defects in the artifact itself from when it was produced, but rather new work of the elements. Now, these artifacts don't always come in chert varieties. Sometimes you can see them carved out of stone for like mortars and pestles and axes sometimes. Or even if it's local to your area, agates. Like I have a little tiny agate point, which should be on screen right here. Essentially, agate and chert are basically the same thing because they're both types of chalcedony, which is a rock that is made up a bunch of microscopic crystals. If you see some chert that is really smooth, that's not always water. Sometimes they could have like used it so much that their oils on their hands have helped smooth it down into this really smooth and easy to touch shape. Now, the way that bulbs form is whenever the chert is struck from a platform, it ripples up and then it all kind of forms together into this one bulb off of where it was struck. So if they whacked a flake that they really liked, they would continue working on it and adding microserration, as you see down the side of this. Sometimes you see what is called a dorsal ridge down the side. Now that can be formed from initial flakes off the core or from symmetrical flaking down the sides when they were working it into shape. At times, the natives would carry around giant cores of chert or whatever material they were wanting to use and just like randomly whack a flake, and if it was usable, then they would use that as like a one-time blade, point, or scraper. On this piece, you can see long flaking down the side. That is what's called fluting, and you commonly see it on Clovis points. And if they found a rock that was in a pretty similar shape to what they wanted to work their material into, they would sometimes just pick that rock up and finish it off. So the reason why you sometimes see these little ripples off of like a striking platform or near a bulb is because of the minerals that are found in chert. So it has a high silica content, which means that it can ripple like that. Glass also has a similar property. Chert can also come in many different colors and varieties. Like most of what you're seeing on screen is made of this orange chert, but this right here is like a really dark blue with some hints of green and a little bit of orange. On some tools, like scrapers, they would leave a little bit of what is called Cortex on, which is just the outside of a chert nodule. Now, they didn't bother to remove it because it wouldn't really affect the performance of the tool because the sharp edge is almost never where the Cortex is. I hope you guys found these tips useful. After all, I'm only 12 and trying to learn about this stuff every day. These are just some of the things I look for when I'm relic hunting, and they have helped me out a great deal. On most artifacts you'll find they will be what is called Uniface, which means they only have working on one side, which those are usually the tools made from flakes. Now sometimes you'll find Bifaces, which sometimes have more working on one side than the other, but still that means that both sides are worked. On different parts of the tool, different sized flakes are taken off. So on some parts, these huge flakes are taken off, which are like the main form changing ones. But for like the finishing touches and the serration, smaller little, as they're called, finishing flakes are taken. So these are just some of my tips on how to find Native American artifacts. Now there are plenty more that I didn't have time to go into, but these are just some of the basic ones that you will always need. But most importantly of all, patience is key. Some days you'll go without finding any, and then, like, next day, you'll find a smoker. You never really know. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with all your friends. Thanks for watching.